Caleng and the Moonstone Pearl by M. Romero. Prologue. Sporadic sparks flared from the fire's blazing red cinders as towering flames licked at plump marshmallows, which dangled over them. Ermine Black, along with his grandchildren, 14-year-old Kayla and a mischievous 12-year-old Simon, sat around a campfire. "Grandpa, tell us another story about Aunt Nicole." Simon's eyebrows pointed to Kayla. Ermine studied the Milky Way that was a scarf-like delicate lace that stretched across the full moon and skies.
"Perhaps one fable," he stated, as the teens listened in. "These caverns once was a refuge ideal for fugitives, while also being a place to test the bravery of the youth."
At once the atmosphere changed. An expression of astonishment washed over Simon's face. "An action story!"
"Legends," Ermine mumbled to them.
Breath sucked in, hissing, through the clenched teeth of the adolescents.
"Imagine another world, right here next to us."
Simon pivoted to the space beside himself. Ermine dipped a hand into his jacket pocket and withdrew something shiny, a glistening object of sorts. Obscured by his tight grip, he ordered,
"Come, sit down."
Kayla and Simon, enthralled, took a seat on an enormous flat stone.
"Once, and not so long ago,"
Ermine pointed towards the blaze. Kayla and Simon stared into a hypnotic allure to the combination of fire and smoke.
"Some things I remember so clear, as though they occurred today," Ermine said in a rich and resonant voice. "But much with time, I've forgotten."
Ermine's hands joined. "Gramps, if the problem is your memory, then we can always stop."
"Quite considerate, Simon."
Ermine took a deep breath as he gazed into the depths of the burning embers.
"I once traveled to a faraway land, across time and unknown oceans. The year?"
2019, Kayla swiftly answered.
"Not so."
Confused, Simon threw a questioning look at Ermine.
"No. Now, if I remember correctly, throughout the waning age of Lesko amid the 8th moon of Quid, it was 3,000 years after the fall of Lyrtira."
A bewildered Kayla browsed about with frustration. "All right, this story sounds unrealistic." "Shh!" The urgent command came from Simon.
"No, Kayla. Nicole entered the realm of Goliad and visited most of the 13 kingdoms. In Berryfield, a hamlet of the kingdom of Bresden, is where her adventure began. It was as plain as the nose on my face."
"What happened?"
"Caleng, a boy like you, was born."
"Huh? Like me?"
"Almost, Simon. But Caleng was a prince who ventured out of his world."
In a flash, Kayla straightened her back in a well-mannered posture and put on a gentle smile. "A prince?" she exclaimed with a thoughtful gesture.
"Not just any prince, but the Prince of Fairies."
Ermine's face took on a more critical gaze.
"You two need to understand that evil resides in all parts of their world, as it does on ours."
Kayla and Simon gasped. Ermine turned to them with hands cupped together. He dwelled silently for a moment, but in an instant, a mischievous gander shone into his eyes. The moment his hands opened, they exposed a small orb of light. The glare of the gem dazzled their eyes, but with a fragment of space, both teenagers, like gods, peered into Bresden as Ermine's soothing voice dissolved into the surroundings. An enchanted forest, once abundant with exotic and mythical creatures, was now a lonely place. Hills draped in ash and debris. Swept by wind, the air permeated with dirt still lingered. All the while, scattered fires consumed what endured. Camouflaged by a cloak, the sorcerer lowered his hands and thrust them forward with power. The force provoked a swirl of energies and a mixture of colors. It ignited a brilliant light show above, and a vortex emerged on the mound. In seconds, the hooded frock shot through, pursued by a blast of energy. The cape in a twirl shrunk away. The vortex closed. In a predicament of his own, the crusty old wizard, Finhazem, adorned in a blue velvet robe, held a crooked staff, tipped with an almarasite crystal. Past him stood a hairy hobgoblin with long, pointed, twisted ears. An expected silence settled over the two. Time's impression remained eternal. The imp fiercely leaped against Finhazem. A current discharged from the crook, and electrified the creature into the barren ground. The hobgoblin shivered, shook, and afterward vanished. Finhazem examined the area. Behind him, the fiend bolted straight up. He dusted himself off, his dark eyes hesitant to meet the others. "My, what squander!" Finhazem arched a brow. "Such a waste!" The gremlin hurried to his feet. "A mage, aren't you?"
"What should I say? You sensed my rod."
"Why do you channel the elements?" The goblin's arms extended out with a slight bow, while the curious Finhazem remained perpetually alert. "Why, when you can manipulate these into great—" The goblin's face frowned while a hand rubbed his agonizing chest. "Magus, you hurt me!" he scornfully declared.
"Enough of this rubbish. It is time for you to leave."
"Oh?" The demon smirked, giving the old conjurer a small view of his jagged fangs. "Who should command this?" Finhazem's vestments fluttered behind him like wings.
"Yes, so right."
He paused, with a fast flick of his wand, and commanded, "Begone!" A short stream of light struck the gremlin in the chest, making him disintegrate into a heap of soot. Simon's tongue slithered with joy every time Ermine told a story, always reacting the same way. "So the magician won the battle?" Ermine's tone, stern but kind, answered,
"Not so."
"Okay, go on, Simon eagerly urged. Kayla smiled. "Yes, go on, Grandpa."
"Fine."
Ermine once more revealed the small sphere of light. Wonderment glistened in their pupils as their gaze downcast into space. Ermine's supple voice went faint into the environment.
"And so it was that, prompted by grave news, the charmer returned to the castle."
Fireflies lit the chamber room. 15-foot walls glinted with what appeared to be embedded jewels. However, the somber mood prevailed, with Queen Arabella reposed on her elegant white tulip-petal bed. A closer inspection would show how her glamour had declined. Her breath slower than how it normally was. A saddened group of fairies of various types also surrounded the room. Queen Arabella's light continued to diminish with each passing second. In silence, a witch and 2 wizards stood in a corner. The onlookers' muffled whispers hung thick when 3 elfin soldiers arrived. They bowed to the royal couple. The handsome, grizzle-haired ruler delivered his mandate with a head jolt. Without warning or delay, the guards moved through the solemn union, approaching Finhazem. "Wait!" Andrade placed a hand on the soldier's extremity, his fingers holding him still. Andrade glared at the sovereign. "Please, your majesty." "Worry not, Andrade." The old elfin woman, Dwabrilla, stepped forward and grabbed Andrade's arm. Andrade turned to her. "What about you? Would you not help?" Dwabrilla's clutch loosened. Her eyes turned down in shame. Andrade again turned to King Parrot with pleading eyes. A headshake denied his petition. Angry, the elfin soldier broke free from Andrade's grasp and proceeded to head out of the bedchamber with Finhazem in hand. Murmured voices rose after the embarrassing moment. In another corner of the bedroom, a startled 2-month-old Prince Caleng wailed for attention from the top of his lungs. An anxious King Parrot met Queen Arabella's eyes. Presumed to be the most potent healer in the Dominion, he is. However, in this dreaded hour, he was the weakest. Although King Parrot had managed to repair the damage to her broken body, he was unable to restore the spark of life that once occupied the lovely royal. Queen Arabella tried to speak with substantial effort, but could not muster enough strength to expel any words. Caleng's nerve-shattering cries, in moments, reached their limit. Sheer anger sounded out from King Parrot. "Quiggles, take charge of this child immediately!" A silver-haired, tough-looking bear-like dryad named Quiggles with warm violet eyes glanced up from the center of the room. A thin layer of fur covered his massive frame that hid, blanketed in vividly green woodland clothing. The 10.5-foot-tall, 620-pound dryad stood up and clumsily walked through the disheartened circle.
"Excuse me, let me through,"
Quiggles cautiously continued ahead. He curtsied in earnest to King Parrot.
"Pardon me."
He just kept moving warily until he finally reached the golden flowery cradle. His tender hold carefully lifted the noble boy, cooing.
"Hush now, Caleng."
King Parrot's eyes fell to his ill-stricken queen, lying helpless on her bed. Queen Arabella used every ounce of spirit she had left to lift her tightly clutched hand to him. The pride he had built in his years of being king could not stop his eyes from watering as he opened her hand to find a crumpled piece of mistletoe. After swallowing the lump stuck in the back of his throat, King Parrot reassured her with a loving smile. However, the Queen's light went dim. The mistletoe slid from her now limp hand. An anguished King Parrot embraced and held her tight against his chest. "No!" The fragment of mistletoe glided to the floor. In unison, everyone in the room let out a horrified gasp, and all at once their tears followed suit. The king's torturous pain streamed beyond all possible dimensions, and within moments, talks about Queen Arabella's death